The story of Ivan Vladimirovich Maslov. I commanded a company of the 52nd Guards Tank Brigade, went through the entire war from Poland and Finland to Berlin. I was wounded 6 times, burned in a tank several times, awarded the Order of Alexander Nevsky, the Orders of the Red Star, and the medals for courage and for military merit. I was born in November 1918 in the city of Akhtarka, Sumy region. There were 6 children in our family, 4 sisters and 2 brothers. We lived poorly, and from childhood, I understood that I needed to help my parents, to take on some of the responsibilities. Already in 1933, I went to work. It was hard, but we held on because there was simply no other way. From a young age, I had a dream, to serve in the Red Army. I considered it the highest honor for any young man. When 1938 came, I waited for the call up with impatience. But then not everyone was taken. There were strict criteria, and the number of conscripts for each district was limited. I repeatedly went to the military commissariat, asked the military commissar to enlist me. I told him, I have enough health for 3, I am a Komsomol member, a worker, I want to serve. On November 9, 1938, my dream came true. I was called up into the ranks of the Red Army. Thus began a new stage of my life, which later determined my entire future. After the call-up, we were brought near Polotsk to the village of Borovuka 1. The 25th Tank Brigade of the Belarusian Special Military District was stationed there. I immediately entered the school for mechanic drivers, graduated with honors, and was sent to the 2nd Company of the 1st Battalion. We were then armed with T-26 tanks. In the summer of 1939, I was transferred to the 1st Company of the 139th Separate Tank Battalion. There I served as a senior mechanic driver. The battalion was commanded by Major Chechen. The commissar was Nestorov. The chief of staff was my namesake Maslov. And the company was commanded by Captain Permyakov, a 2-time order bearer who fought in Spain. The battalion had 3 companies, each with 17 tanks. The army of that time was strong and organized. Discipline was ironclad, and the attitude towards the Red Army soldiers was sensitive. We were made to thoroughly know our combat specialty, the materiel, and, what was especially important, they knew how to teach us to make decisions independently. There was no mindless soldiering. It was then that I accustomed myself to being serious and diligent in any matter. Tankers served for 3 years. We were well equipped, excellently trained, and always well fed. Every day we were given meat and butter. Mechanic drivers like me were even entitled to a double ration of butter. We lived, one might say, in luxury. I played sports, played football for the tank forces team in district championships. By the summer of 1941, I was already a senior sergeant, preparing to go home after demobilization. I was receiving a salary of 230 rubles, saving money for a civilian suit. But the plans were not destined to come true. The war began, and the road home was closed to me. In late summer 1939, our brigade was redeployed to the border with Western Belarus. Soon an order came to advance. There were no battles as such, but I witnessed an attack by Polish cavalry on our battalion. This was not a joke, but reality. The cavalrymen came in a wave, sabers drawn against our tanks. We just exchanged glances. Are they completely out of their minds? We suppressed them quickly. The Poles abandoned their horses and weapons and dispersed. Some became our prisoners, some went home. Later, the prisoners said that they had been told that Russian tanks were made of plywood and posed no danger. We encountered almost no open hostility, but one incident stayed with me forever. In a small town, one of our tank crewmen went to a barbershop. An order came to move out, but he was still missing. We started looking and found his body in the backyard. One of the locals had stabbed our comrade. In a rage, we crushed that house with a tank. With that campaign, we reached Vilnius, where we settled in old barracks from Tsarist times. We stayed there until November 1939. 2 battalions of the brigade were returned to Polotsk for equipment repair, and 1 remained in Lithuania. Among those who remained were many of my countrymen and comrades. This entire battalion was annihilated at the very beginning of the war. In December 1939, on the basis of our brigade, the 25th Tank Regiment was formed under the command of Major Georgy Semyonovich Rodin. I was appointed tank commander. 3 companies from the regiment were sent to the Petrozavodsk direction. This was a grueling test for the tanks. All around were forests, hills, lakes with thin ice. We had to cut down trees and build corduroy roads to advance. Even during halts, we had to warm up the engine every half hour. The frosts reached 50 degrees below zero. The Finns proved to be excellent fighters and a serious adversary. We were well-dressed and supplied. Everyone wore felt boots, quilted trousers, and helmet liners. We were fed rich borscht, given lard, sausage, and alcohol. There was no problem with tobacco. It seemed like everything was provided for the soldier. But the conditions in battles were terrible. Finnish cuckoo snipers were very bothersome. Once, at a crossroads of forest roads, we fell into an ambush. We already had new tanks with machine guns on the turrets. I shot down 3 cuckoos directly from the treetops, but the Finns not only shot from trees, they also operated boldly in our rear. They often came out on skis and staged bloody concerts. There was a case. A bathhouse was set up for the soldiers in the forest, a tarpaulin tent was pitched, and a fire was stoked. Several of our men went in to wash, and then 3 Finns with automatic weapons burst in. Several guys were killed right there. A hard, terrible war. Once, the 2nd company of our regiment was completely wiped out. We reached a fortified line of Finnish pillboxes, and there, each pillbox was like a fortress. Concrete, overlapping structures, they could only be destroyed by heavy howitzers. We went on the attack, and the 2nd company ran into a minefield. All 17 tanks were destroyed. Those who did not die on the mines were finished off by artillery. None of the crew survived. In our 1st company, the losses were smaller, but still heavy. In my crew, there was a mechanic driver, Sasha Vorontsov from Ivanovo. A wonderful guy, he always muttered the same swear word, and he saved us from death several times. I felt almost no fear then. I did my job and didn't bother my head with thoughts of death. I had a fighting spirit since childhood, always got into fights, and that helped in the war. Before each attack, I felt exhilarated and eager to show the enemy what we were worth. When the campaign ended, we were pulled back to the town of Shuya. There we put ourselves and our equipment in order. Awards were not given to everyone, only to selected individuals. But our commander, Rodin, was promoted to colonel. In May 1940, we were loaded onto a train and sent to Azerbaijan. We arrived in Kirovabad, where there had been no tank units before us. Based on the former 24th Cavalry Division and our Finnish 25th Regiment, a new tank regiment was formed, named the 24th Separate. After the frosts of Karelia, we found ourselves in a real paradise. Warm climate, fruits everywhere. But there was no rest. Training and exercises were grueling. We were pushed so hard that tankers even ran a marathon distance, 41 kilometers in boots with weapons and a gas mask. In that marathon, I took 2nd place in the division. The command staff soon changed. A new regimental commander arrived, Colonel Lebedenko, a former academy instructor. He turned out to be a complete zero, both as a commander and as a person. Later, he destroyed the regiment in Crimea, and this was expected. Strange events began to happen in the regiment. The platoon commander, Lieutenant Plesakov, disappeared. Some said he deserted to Iran, while others claimed he was sent on a reconnaissance mission. Then the chief of staff, Sadulsky, was taken away. Rumors circulated that he was arrested, but no one knew anything for sure. The atmosphere became tense. I was transferred to the position of instructor for a training vehicle. I taught recruits and experienced crews how to drive and shoot. Here I got plenty of practice with the tank cannon and achieved great skill. This skill later saved my life on the front lines many times. I was already preparing for demobilization, but the war broke out, and I was not destined to go home. In late June 1941, our regiment was transferred to Stepanakert. There we were reinforced with reservists from Transcaucasia, and we spent a week in the forest. Then we were loaded onto trains and sent to the border with Iran. When the order to invade came, we crossed the Zulf River and reached the city of Ardabil. We met almost no resistance. The cavalry had gone into the mountains. My tank went first. Outside the city, 3 planes attacked us, machine gunning us, even knocking off the antenna. But that was all they were capable of. We moved on and saw 2 trucks with trailers. We fired a couple of shots and the drivers scattered. We drove closer and in the trailers were watermelons. That was the extent of our battle in Iran. Then we reached Tabriz, and later we were stationed in the suburbs of Tehran. A joint parade of British and Soviet troops was held there. My tank commander Kovalev and I were chosen as representatives of our unit. The parade took place at a stadium near the Shah's palace. We marched calmly, while the local residents threw stones at the British soldiers. Our contacts with the population were limited. Desertion began among Azerbaijanis and Armenians. They went to their local relatives. From Tehran, we were returned to Georgia. In Tbilisi, at a tank repair plant, we put our vehicles in order, after which we were redeployed to Novorossiysk. Their preparations began for a landing in Feodosia. The tanks were loaded onto barges, and on the evening of December 31st, 1941, instead of Feodosia, we were landed on the shore in Kerch. The landing took place under continuous enemy fire. Thus began the war with the Germans for me. The landing in Kerch took place under heavy fire, but our morale as regular tank crews was high. Everyone was eager to beat the Germans quickly and prove that we were not broken. For me, this war was also a personal matter. My younger brother Vladimir served as a sailor in the Black Sea Fleet, fighting in Sevastopol in a Marine Infantry Brigade. He miraculously survived, but was evacuated from the city severely wounded. Volodya returned from the war disabled, on crutches, with a disfigured abdomen, covered in scars. I wanted to help my brother get revenge for everything he had endured. We advanced with battles to the Pervomaysk and Semikolotsy area, reached Vladislavovka, just 15 kilometers from Feodosia. There was a heavy night battle. In the morning, as soon as we had breakfast and drank Crimean wine, which was given to us instead of the People's Commissar's vodka, our Colonel Lebedenko appeared. He decided to show initiative and immediately led us into another attack. We were still a bit tipsy, but that didn't stop him. We asked him to wait at least an hour, but he pushed forward. I could barely aim. My coordination was off. My head was spinning. I swore to myself then, if I got out of this battle alive, I would never drink before an attack again. The attack turned into a disaster. We lost half our tanks. Excellent guys died, and Lebedenko didn't even show it, as if nothing had happened. He liked to portray himself as a strategist, shot at German planes with a pistol, but in reality he was a mediocrity. On March 13, 1942, my tank was hit right next to the German trenches. A shell hit the engine block. I managed to jump out, lay down near the damaged vehicle. The Germans decided to take me alive. I shot 5 of them with my pistol, but one hit my right hand with a bullet. With my last bullet, I broke through back. I collapsed from exhaustion, and only a lieutenant medic pulled me off the battlefield. I was evacuated to Novorossiysk, then to a hospital in Kislovodsk. In early May, I was discharged and returned to the Taman Peninsula, crossed back to Kerch, and went looking for my battalion. But a nightmare was already unfolding there. The front was collapsing. There was fleeing, panic, burning vehicles everywhere. The Germans had broken through the defenses, units wavered and scattered. Only battalions with a Slavic core held out reliably, while others abandoned their weapons and left. I tried to find my battalion, but it was all in vain. I stumbled upon a blocking detachment. The commander stopped the fleeing soldiers and ordered them to take up defensive positions. I approached and said, "I'm a regular tanker, give me a vehicle. I've hardly ever fired a rifle." But they answered, "Tanker? You'll stay with us." I spent several days with them, and everything that happened there, even decades later, I cannot recount. It was so terrifying. It was a disaster. I saw a general building a raft by himself to escape the Crimean shore. I saw soldiers trying to cross on rafts, car inner tubes, and simply swimming under continuous fire and bombing. Almost everyone was swept out to sea. There was no organized evacuation. Everyone saved themselves as best they could. On May 21st, 1942, I decided to swim across the strait. When it seemed my strength was gone, I managed to grab onto the side of the last boat. It was overloaded. They initially didn't want to pull me up, but I clung on with all my might. That's how I escaped from Crimea. In the Kuban, we, the surviving tankers, were gathered and sent to help the collective farmers. We mowed grass, ate our fill, drank milk, and recovered from all the horror. Then we formed the 125th Separate Tank Battalion. In addition to T-26s, we also received new T-34s. We mastered these vehicles within a day. Our new battalion was reinforced with young lieutenants who had just graduated from military schools. I looked at these guys and wondered, What could they have been taught in 6 months? I was trained alone for almost a year to be a mechanic driver, and they were immediately made platoon and company commanders. But there was no alternative. The war demanded people. In the summer of 1942, we found ourselves on the Don. It was no easier there than in Crimea, but the spirit of the troops had changed. They fought more fiercely, held on more stubbornly. Losses were terrible, but people fought. I remember one moment. After heavy attacks, the remnants of the battalion reached a crossing over the Don near the Morozovskaya Stanitsa, and German tanks were coming like an avalanche. Dive bombers covered the entire sky. It seemed their planes' landing gear touched the turrets of our vehicles. Battalion Commander Major Danilov understood that in a few minutes we would simply be annihilated and ordered a retreat. We marched through the Kuters, villages, and there the locals had already set tables for the Germans. White tablecloths, snacks. We sprayed them with machine guns. Only splinters flew. Then we entrenched ourselves near the town of Zimovniki in the Rostov region. From a hill, we watched as endless columns of German equipment stretched day and night towards Stalingrad. There was no order to attack. Our positions resembled a sieve more than a defense. One morning, my soldiers shouted, "Han, Commander, Germans!" A group of motorcyclists and an armored personnel carrier were heading our way. I fired accurately. No one escaped. The next day, 2 armored personnel carriers, a passenger car, and a truck with a booth appeared on the same road. I covered the entire convoy. When we went to check, it turned out that a German general, the Corps Chief of Staff, was in the passenger car with a stack of maps and documents. It was a rare stroke of luck to capture a general in 1942. Intelligence officers arrived, shook my hand, promised me the Hero of the Soviet Union star. Some even congratulated me. I didn't believe them, and I was right. A few days later, my tank was hit again. The crew survived. We were standing next to the vehicle, and suddenly one of ours, Loader Ivan Babenko, said, "Let's split up. We can't defeat the Germans anyway." My blood boiled. I wanted to shoot him on the spot, but I held back. I ordered him to walk next to me and warned him, "One step aside, I'll kill you." We removed our machine guns, took our discs, and headed east. There was chaos all around. Armies were crumbling. We walked through the Kalmyk steppes without water or people. When we reached our own forces, we were sent for refitting. In November 1942, our battalion, after unloading at Kalak Station, participated in the offensive near Stalingrad. It was there that I was promoted to officer rank. Company Commander Fursov and political instructor Kobzarev announced, "For heroism in battles, Lieutenant." Thus I became a tank platoon commander. After Stalingrad, we were redeployed to the southwestern front near Kharkov. There we had to rescue the 3rd Tank Army, which had fallen into the 2nd Kharkov encirclement. Tens of thousands of Red Army soldiers perished in that cauldron, and we lost over 700 tanks alone. Our efforts to break the ring yielded no results. We were stuck in this area for long months. For half a year, there were exhausting attempts to break through the German defenses. The battles were fierce, often tanks engaged head-on. We advanced, reaching Chugov, Malinovka, the Kharkov tractor plant. But the Germans always pushed us back. In the spring near Isium, we attacked Height 181.1, which was held by Vlasovites. Half of our tanks were knocked out on the approaches. Then an infantry division was thrown in. 2 hours later, nothing remained of it. After that, we went into battle again, but we failed to break through the defenses. On August 28, 1942, near the village of Malaya Kamashevka, my tank was hit. A large shrapnel fragment hit my chest, piercing the right side and lodging in my lung. I managed to get out of the vehicle, but then my comrades carried me out. I was sent to hospital number 3185 in Pyatigorsk. The surgeons did not dare to operate, and that shrapnel is still inside me. I spent almost 3 months in the hospital. I quit smoking then too. They wanted to discharge me due to disability, but I refused. I was declared unfit for active service and sent to Ryazan, to a training tank regiment. There I became the commander of a training platoon, preparing tankers for the 2nd Ukrainian Front. But the impressions of my service in that regiment remained the heaviest. Officers wore patched breeches and were poorly fed. Many commanders clung to rear echelon service just to avoid going to the front. The atmosphere was oppressive. I was particularly fed up with the battalion commander, Major Feoktistov, a bureaucratic and picky man. One day I couldn't stand it anymore and punched him directly in the face. Rumors circulated that I would be sent to a penal battalion. The regimental commander called me in, threatening a court-martial. I said, to a penal battalion or to hell, just to be away from you. In the end, he hushed up the matter and released me to a marching company. But I never made it to the front then. Our train in Vinnytsia region came under bombing. Shrapnel broke my right leg, the femur, and both lower legs. In Uman, doctors said the leg had to be amputated. I agreed, but already lying on the table, I changed my mind. I signed a paper that if I died, there would be no claims against the doctors. That's how I saved my leg. I was taken to Orsk to hospital number 3640, where I spent almost a year and a half, from spring 1943 to November 1944. In late autumn 1944, I was discharged from the hospital and sent to Moscow to the Officer Reserve Regiment of Armored Forces near Sokol Metro Station. I couldn't stay there long. Already in December, I received an assignment to the 3rd Tank Army. I was appointed commander of the 1st Company of the 1st Battalion of the 52nd Guards Tank Brigade. The banner of this brigade was adorned with 5 orders. In the new unit, I was received with special respect. By 1945, there were almost no career soldiers of pre-war hardening left at the front. Officers and soldiers quickly learned that I had started fighting in the Polish campaign and in Finland, and that I had extensive experience behind me. For many young tankers, I became a living example. They literally looked at me with open mouths. Of the 12 officers in the company, only 2 had more than a year of frontline experience. The Siberian Ivan Rusakov and Lieutenant Arkady Vasilyev. All the others were graduates of academies who had barely smelled war. These guys had to be taught literally from scratch. Every free minute, I hammered combat wisdom into them, showed them how to survive in a tank battle. And this brought results. My company suffered the fewest casualties in the brigade, even in the hell of the street battles of Berlin. By spring, we participated in the offensive on Poland and Germany. On April 16, 1945, my tank was blown up by a mine during the crossing of the Nysen, right before the eyes of Army Commander Rybalko. I was severely shell-shocked. An officer ran up and ordered me to go to Rybalko. I reported, Company Commander, Senior Lieutenant Maslov. Rybalko said, transfer to another tank. I need company commanders in Berlin. So I got into tank number 217 and continued on. In Berlin, I commanded an assault group, 5 tanks, a platoon of submachine gunners, and a platoon of sappers. We moved slowly, hugging the walls of houses to protect at least one side from Faustniks, Panzerfaust users. If someone drove out into the middle of the street, they were immediately set on fire. I had to take an automatic rifle myself, get out of the tank, and lead the infantry in storming buildings. At one intersection, I received a bullet in the leg, but I only stayed in the medical battalion for 2 days. I returned to my men because I understood. Without me, it would be harder for my guys. On April 20th, we burst into Barut Station. I was at the head of the advance guard. There was a train with German infantry and platforms with 8 new tanks. We struck first. Hundreds of Germans lay dead. The tanks burned. Later, the Germans brought up reinforcements, and 2 brigades eventually took the station, but we delivered the first blow. For Beirut and for Berlin, we were promised the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. They said the award recommendations had been sent to Rybalko, but then they fell silent about it. In the end, I received the Order of Alexander Nevsky, and for that, thank you, although a bitter taste remained. On April 29th, already after being wounded, I escaped from the medical battalion and returned to my company. On May 2nd, when the fighting in Berlin had subsided, I was filled with joy and pride that I had lived to see these days. I understood. Fate had preserved me. After Berlin, we went to Prague. The roads there were strewn with mines, the Germans were firing from all sides, but even there, we held out. Thus, the war ended for me. During the war years, I was wounded 6 times, burned in tanks many times, and crawled out of damaged vehicles. Already in 1943, I could have left for civilian life due to disability, but each time I returned to the front. I did not consider myself a hero, and did not like loud words. I treated the war as a job, my craft. My task was to destroy the enemy and lead the company forward. I never kept track of how many tanks I destroyed or how many Germans I killed. For me, the war was not a competition. I knew one thing. For every enemy vehicle we destroyed, we paid with the lives of our comrades. To boast about this would be sacrilegious. I only had a few episodes that I remembered with special pride, like the capture of a German general near Zimovniki or the defeat of a train at Beirut station. But even then, I didn't paint stars on the barrel, as some did. I never expected awards. For Berlin, I was awarded the Order of Alexander Nevsky, and they could have forgotten about me entirely. Throughout my time, I realized headquarters loved to reward themselves in their inner circle, while true fighters often remained unrecognized. It was bitter, but I didn't fight for orders. We treated German civilians with restraint and correctness. There were no excesses in our brigade. I remember a scene in Berlin. Civilians, a woman with a child, were running down the street in front of us. I immediately ordered, "Do not shoot." Our men remained silent, while the Germans were firing indiscriminately along the street. At such moments, it became clear who was who. I strictly forbade alcohol before battle. I had seen too many senseless deaths when a person drank for courage and died in the very first minute. I told my men, if you're scared, it's better to shoot yourself than to drag your crew to their doom. I considered my intuition for danger to be my special advantage. Sometimes I felt in my gut, there's an ambush or mines ahead, and then I could refuse a commander's order and lead the company another way. This saved my men and machines many times. Experience, quick reactions, and the courage to take responsibility. That's what helped us survive. By the end of the war, I understood. I survived thanks to several factors: persistent training before the war, fire mastery, discipline, demandingness of myself and my subordinates, and of course, luck. Without it, it was impossible to live 2.5 years in a tank at the front. After the war, I wanted to continue my service. I was even offered to enter the Armored Academy, despite my incomplete secondary education. I was ready to prepare for exams, but I perfectly understood. After 6 wounds, I had no chance of passing the medical commission. Several of our guys had already tried, and they were cut even before the exams. I continued to serve in tank units, but the Army began to change rapidly. Simple frontline relationships became a thing of the past. Pompous rear echelon chiefs and colonels' epaulets came to the fore. To bow before them, to smile falsely. That was not in my nature. I knew how to fight, command a company and a battalion, mercilessly defeat the enemy. But I wanted more: to study, to develop, to learn new things. Therefore, I decided to demobilize. In civilian life, I graduated from 2 institutes, received 2 higher education degrees, and later advanced economic courses at Kharkov University. I worked as deputy director of a flour mill, then director of a bakery products plant. More than 1,500 people were under my command. The ability to lead people, understand them, and find a common language came to me from the front during the years of command tempering. In peaceful life, this experience proved invaluable. Over the years, the war increasingly returned to my memory. In recent years, I especially often recall comrades with whom I went through the entire front shoulder to shoulder and those who died in battles. I also increasingly think about those who are no longer with us in peacetime. Our generation is leaving. Fewer and fewer of us remain. Sometimes I ask myself, did I do everything right? Is my conscience clear? Will my grandchildren ever have to blush for my actions? In such moments, I relive battles, episodes, decisions I made at the front again and again. And I come to one conclusion. I honestly did everything I could, everything that was in my power to hasten victory. I went through fire and steel, faced death many times. Fate preserved me where thousands of others perished. I never considered myself a hero, but I always knew. My job was to defend the motherland, and I did it as I knew how, to the end, without reservation.